There is a wall in Holmes County, Ohio that was built in 1889. It has never been painted. It has never been patched. It is never needed either. It is made from clay dug out of the field behind the house, sand from the creek bed, and straw from the previous year's harvest. It cost nothing to build except time and the labor of the family that raised it. Over 3 weeks in the summer of 1889. That wall is warmer in January and cooler in August than any insulated stud wall, built in America in the last 70 years, and the material science behind it was buried so completely by the post-war construction industry that most American architects today have never heard the word cob used in a structural context. That word is what this video is about. Cob is a building material made from subsoil clay, sand, and straw, mixed together with water and formed into monolithic walls by hand. No formwork, no blocks, no mortar joints, no manufactured components of any kind. The soil under your feet and the straw in the field. Mixed with water, shaped by hand, and stacked into walls that dry and cure into a material with compressive strength, comparable to concrete, and thermal mass properties that no manufactured wall assembly has ever matched at any price. Cob buildings exist on every continent. The same material in thousands of earthen buildings across Yemen, Morocco, France, Germany, and the American Southwest that have been standing for centuries without maintenance budgets, without structural engineers, and without anyone's permission. In England alone, there are estimated to be over 50,000 cob buildings currently occupied as primary residences. They are not curiosities. They are not heritage sites. They are homes that people live in every day, that sell on the open market for standard prices. And that costs their owners almost nothing to maintain, because a correctly built cob wall simply does not fail on any timescale. But England is not the most dramatic example. The most dramatic example is Yemen. In the old city of Shibam, in the Hadramaut Valley, there are earthen tower buildings that rise to 16 stories. 16 stories, built from the same clay, sand, and straw that make up the Holmes County wall. The tallest of them were constructed between the 1500s and 1600s, and are still occupied today. UNESCO designated the old city of Shibam as a World Heritage Site, not because the buildings are ruins, but because they are a living urban environment built entirely from earthen construction that has functioned without interruption for centuries. The driest, harshest climate on the Arabian Peninsula, in a region that regularly experiences temperatures exceeding 110 degrees Fahrenheit. 16-story earthen buildings, 4 centuries old, still occupied. The New Mexico code official who helped draft the 2003 Earthen Building Standard told a building science journalist that the primary obstacle to earthen building code adoption in most states was not technical, it was economic. The technical performance of earthen buildings was not in question. The obstacle was the absence of an industry willing to fund the code development process. Manufacturing trade associations fund code development through their lobbying. An earthen building standard funded by whom? By the clay, under your backyard. The clay does not have a lobbying budget. The clay does not have a seat on the International Code Council. The clay is not incorporated. The clay does not file campaign contributions. And so the code that would make a 16-story Yemeni technique available to an Ohio homeowner does not exist because the technique has no industry behind it to pay for its recognition. The American construction industry does not build with cob. Not because cob does not work in American climates. Not because cob fails any performance standard relevant to human comfort or structural integrity. Because cob cannot be manufactured. Cob cannot be shipped from a facility. Cob cannot be patented. Cob cannot generate a supply chain or a distribution network. Cob cannot generate a contractor licensing requirement or a recurring maintenance revenue stream. Cob is dirt and straw and labor. There is nothing to sell. And what cannot be sold cannot generate the industry that writes the codes. And so the codes do not accommodate it. The architects do not learn it, the contractors do not build it. Until now. The median cost of new residential construction in the United States in 2024 is approximately $150 per square foot for materials alone. A 1,500 square foot house costs $225,000 in materials before a single nail is driven. These include vinyl, fiberglass, and synthetic products. Every manufacturer has a lobby. Every lobby has relationships with code-writing bodies. The system generates revenue for everyone but you. A cob house of the same size costs approximately $10 to $30 per square foot in materials. Clay and sand are dug from the site. Straw costs $5 per bale. Total material cost for a well-built 1,500 square foot cob house, $15,000 to $45,000. The saving is $180,000 to $210,000 in materials alone. That gap is the reason you have never heard of this. A cob house is a $180,000 withdrawal from the construction products economy. That's why it's been invisible for 70 years. Now let me tell you what cob actually does. Physical performance is why English cob houses are still standing 800 years later. Cob walls are typically 18 to 24 inches thick. This thickness is not insulation, it is thermal mass. The cob wall stores 15 times as much heat per unit of wall area as the manufactured alternative. On a sunny winter day, the cob wall absorbs heat. Through the cold night, it releases it back into the interior. The room stays warm without the furnace running because the wall is doing the work. The second property is vapor permeability. Cob breathes. It allows water vapor to pass through its structure from the interior to the exterior without accumulating liquid water in the wall cavity. This is the property that prevents the mold problems we discussed in the lime wash video. A standard stud wall with vapor barrier, insulation and drywall creates a sandwich where vapor will condense at some point. The vapor barrier intended to prevent this creates the condensation problem it was designed to solve by blocking vapor movement. A cob wall has no barrier. Vapor moves through it freely. There is no condensation point. There is no mold habitat. There is just clay and sand and straw that have been managing moisture the same way they managed it in the ground. The third property is longevity. Clay and sand do not rot. Straw embedded in a dense clay matrix does not rot because the clay excludes the oxygen and moisture that fungi require. The biological mechanisms that destroy wood-framed buildings, moisture infiltration, and insect infestation, are simply not applicable to earthen walls. A cob wall that stays dry at the base, protected by a well-designed roof overhang, will not degrade on any human timescale. The 800-year-old Devon building is not exceptional. It is normal for the material. American wood frame construction has a functional lifespan of 50 to 100 years. A well-built cob structure is measured in centuries. The University of Bath's Department of Architecture has one of the most active earthen building research programs. Their research on cob wall thermal performance confirmed the thermal mass advantage with measured data from monitored buildings. By the U-value metrics that building codes use, a cob wall fails. It should be cold. The measurements showed it was not. Interior temperatures were consistently warmer in winter and cooler in summer than thermal modeling predicted they should be. The research team concluded the standard thermal modeling framework was simply wrong when applied to high-mass construction. The standard framework models heat transfer as a steady-state process. Insulation slows the rate of heat moving through the wall. It is completely wrong for a high-mass wall that stores heat during the day and releases it at night. It absorbs the cold of a winter night and uses it to cool the interior, operating as a thermal buffer rather than a barrier. The model building codes used was developed for and by the insulation industry. It systematically undervalues mass walls. That choice was not accidental. Now I need to tell you about the regulation. Cob is not illegal in the United States. It is simply not recognized. The International Residential Code does not include a performance pathway for earthen wall construction. There is no prescriptive table that a building inspector can reference to approve a cob wall for a permitted residence. The code assumes walls are built from listed, tested, and approved manufactured products. A wall made from the dirt under the building site is not a listed product. It has no manufacturer. It has no test report. It has no approval number. Therefore, the form the building inspector uses does not have a box for it. Therefore, it cannot be approved. Not because it fails any performance standard. Because the standard was written by and for an industry that sells manufactured products. In 2003, New Mexico became the first state to adopt a formal earthen building code. The New Mexico Earthen Building Materials Code established performance standards for adobe, rammed earth, and cob construction. The code was developed by a coalition of earthen building practitioners, structural engineers, and state code officials. The New Mexico Code is an existence proof. It demonstrates that earthen buildings can be accommodated within a regulatory framework. It has not been adopted in the 47 other states because the manufactured products industry has no interest in a code provision for affordable material. The Amish in Holmes County build under agricultural exemptions in most cases. Their farms are not subject to residential building codes. The wall built in 1889 was not permitted. It did not need to be permitted. The wall simply stands, warm in January and cool in August, doing exactly what clay and sand and straw have always done. Now let me show you how to build with this material. I'm not going to tell you that you can build a permitted house right now. What I can tell you is that you can build permitted agricultural structures, garden walls, outbuildings, workshops, and root cellars. The knowledge of how cob works belongs to anyone willing to learn it. It will be waiting for you when the regulatory landscape catches up. The mix is simple. You need 3 things in specific proportions: subsoil clay, sharp sand, and straw. Subsoil clay is the dense, sticky soil found below the topsoil. Sharp sand creates mechanical interlocking between particles. Straw provides tensile reinforcement. The standard starting ratio is 1 part clay to 2 parts, sand with straw added until the mix holds. Before we start the protocol, let's address a comparison that always comes up: straw bale construction. The comparison illuminates why cob is the superior choice for most situations despite being less well known. Straw bale walls have extremely high insulation value. An 18-inch straw bale wall has an R value of approximately R30. This is comparable to a well-insulated conventional wall. They are fast to build in the wall-raising phase, and straw bales are available in most agricultural regions. But straw bale has a critical vulnerability that cob does not share: moisture. A straw bale wall that allows liquid water to infiltrate will develop mold and structural degradation within 1 to 2 seasons. The straw is not protected by a clay matrix. It is compressed and plastered, but the bales remain discrete units that absorb moisture. The lime plaster needs to be maintained carefully and reapplied when cracks develop. In high rainfall climates, straw bale requires specific architectural detailing. This includes very wide roof overhangs and elevated foundations. In the wrong hands in a wet climate, a straw bale house can fail. Cob does not have this vulnerability. The straw in cob is fully embedded in the clay matrix. It is a fiber reinforcement protected by the surrounding clay from degradation. A correctly built cob wall does not absorb liquid water. The Devon buildings standing for 800 years are in one of the wettest climates. They are not failing. They are teaching. Testing your local soil for suitability takes 15 minutes. Take a ball of moist subsoil about the size of a tennis ball. Let it dry completely. If it holds its shape without cracking and you cannot dent it with your thumb, it has sufficient clay. Clay-rich soils are present throughout the Midwest, the South, and the Pacific Northwest. The American Southwest has some of the finest building soils. The mixing method involves spreading a tarp on the ground. You pile your measured proportions of soil and sand on the tarp. Add water until the mixture is uniformly moist. Fold the tarp repeatedly to mix the components, walking on the pile to compress them. Add handfuls of straw and continue mixing. The resulting material looks like sticky, fibrous mud. In your hands, it feels like dense clay. On the wall, it builds up in lifts of 4 to 6 inches, pressed firmly and keyed in with your thumbs. As each lift dries, the material hardens into a monolithic mass. The individual lifts disappear. The wall becomes one piece. Window and door openings are formed around wooden frames. Electrical conduit and plumbing lines are set in position as building proceeds. At the top of the wall, a wooden bond beam is embedded to provide a surface for the roof structure to bear on. The finished wall is covered with an earthen plaster, also clay-based, that provides a smooth, hard surface for interior and exterior finishes. Traditional Amish lime wash is the standard exterior finish over earthen plaster. It bonds perfectly to the clay surface, provides the same alkaline mold resistance on cob that it provides on stone, and maintains the wall's vapor permeability while protecting the surface from rain erosion. The combination of cob wall, earthen plaster, and lime wash is a building envelope that has been in use for 3,000 years. It is warm in winter, cool in summer, mold-free, pest-resistant, fireproof, and composed entirely of materials from under your feet. The manufactured construction products industry has built a $300 billion annual market in the United States, partly by replacing it. The codes were written to accommodate the replacement. The replacement generates ongoing revenue. The original generates none. I want to close with a project accessible to anyone with outdoor space. Build a garden wall. Enough to create a sheltered microclimate for a south-facing garden bed. Enough to demonstrate to yourself what cob does. The subsoil from digging your garden beds is suitable. Sand costs $30. Straw costs $10. The total investment is under $50. The embodied carbon number is the piece that connects cob to the larger story of what manufactured materials have cost. Portland cement is responsible for approximately 8% of global carbon dioxide emissions annually. 8%. From one manufacturing process. The concrete in your basement, the sidewalk, the parking structure, all carry an embodied carbon cost invisible in the purchase price. A cob wall has essentially zero embodied carbon. The clay and sand were in the ground. The straw was grown this season. No kiln. No chemical process. The wall was made from what was already there by people who were already there. The construction industry externalizes carbon costs to everyone. A cob wall is cheaper for every person alive and who will ever live. The Amish built with it because it was free, it performed well, and it lasted. The reasons that made it rational in 1889 are the same reasons that make it rational in 2024 and beyond. When you put your hand on that garden wall in January after a sunny afternoon, you will feel what thermal mass means. The wall will be warm, not from any heat source, from the sun that hit it 6 hours earlier, and that it has been releasing slowly. It will still be releasing it at midnight. It will still be slightly warm at 6 in the morning, from sunlight that hit it yesterday. That is the wall the Holmes County farmer lives inside. That is the wall that was built in 1889. And has not been maintained since. It has been managing the energy physics of a home for a century, while every manufactured alternative has been replaced 2 and 3 times over. Build the garden wall first. Feel what it does. Then decide what you think about the material waiting in your backyard soil. Drop your state and your soil situation in the comments. Is it red, orange, yellow clay, gray silt, sandy? I want to map the cob building potential of your land. Our next video shows a specific property type, the small suburban lot, where every system from earth tubes to cob to mushroom logs can be implemented simultaneously. The complete system on a quarter acre. I have described systems and economics, but I have not said what I think about the people who did the removing. I think they were rational. They had products to sell, shareholders to serve, and quarterly targets to meet. They maximized short-term revenue. The cost was borne by households that paid utility bills and remediation contractors for things that the earth provided freely. What you can do is stop paying it forward. These systems require only the decision that what the earth provides is worth maintaining. Warm in January, cool in August, fed through winter, free from the meter. That is what has always been available. The only remaining question is what you are going to do with the soil under your feet and the sun on your roof. It was always there. It will always be there. The only thing that changes today is that you know it.